Simile is a figure of speech in which two essentially dissimilar objects or concepts are expressly compared with one another through the use of comparative words like or as. The word simile comes from the Latin word similis, which means likeness. And a simile is an expression of likeness between different objects or events. It consists in placing two different things side by side and comparing them with regard to some quality common to them. So, two objects, two different things are put side by side and are compared with each other with the help of one quality which is common to both. One important aspect is that this comparison is always made with the comparative words like or as. The purpose of a simile is to help describe one thing by comparing it to uh, another thing that is perhaps seemingly unrelated. There are two essential elements in a simile. First, the objects or events compared must be different in kind. And secondly, the point of resemblance between these two different objects must be clearly brought out. And the words of comparison, like, as, are always used. A simile is different from a simple comparison because in simile there are two objects which are unrelated things. Simile is an important tool that makes language more creative, more descriptive, and more entertaining. And it is an obvious thing that the human mind, thinks in images and associations. So, similes are used to make stronger and more effective descriptions than comparing with simple adjectives or literal words. Similes can stir up associated emotions, associated images, and create new connections in mind, and in this way further emphasize certain characteristics and the overall impact is created. Similes are almost essential to creative expression from everyday speech to poetry. Means in day-to-day life the use of simile is common, so is the use of similes in literature. In order to understand simile, let us first see some common examples of similes in our day-to-day life. There are many common examples of simile used in everyday conversation and in our everyday writings. Here are discussed some well-known phrases in which this figure of speech simile is applied. For example, blind as a bat, light as a feather, old as the hills, strong as an ox, fight like cats and dogs, sparkle like diamonds, and the quotations like life is like riding a bicycle, to keep your balance you must keep moving, said by Albert Einstein. And another quotation which is very popular: where simile has been applied. The writer E.L. Doctorow says, writing a novel is like driving a car at night. You can see only as far as your headlights, but you can make the whole trip that way. The effective use of figure of speech simile creates a wonderful impact on the reader sometimes, because it creates an association between two dissimilar entities or two different ideas, which further illuminate each other and enhance the meaning of both. Simile, as a figure of speech, is an essential literal device for writers who write both poetry and prose, and is also applied in the descriptions in novels as well. Let us see now some examples of simile in literature. In Robert Burns' poem, A Red, Red Rose, he writes, "Oh, my love is like red, red rose that is newly sprung in June. Oh, my love is like the melody that is sweetly played in tune." The obvious comparison is there. In this stanza, the poet compares the person he loves first to a rose and then to a melody. In poetry, the concept of love is often compared to flowers and melodies, and Robert Burns has done this in order to convey his impression of love, his feeling of love. However, in this poem, Burns enhances those similes by comparing his love, his beloved, an actual person, rather than an abstract concept, to a rose and to a song. This usage of simile allows the reader to understand that the poet views the person he loves as a symbol of love itself. Let's read another example. In Christiana Rossetti's poem, A Birthday, we learn, "My heart is like a singing bird whose nest is in watered shoot. My heart is like an apple tree whose boughs are bent with thickest fruit. My heart is like a rainbow shell that paddles in a halcyon sea. My heart is gladder than all these because my love is come to me." In these lines, Rossetti uses simile 3 times. First, she says, her heart is like a singing bird. Then she says, her heart is like an apple tree. And lastly, she says, her heart is like a rainbow shell. Rossetti compares the heart to a joyful bird in a full nest and compares her heart with an apple tree full of fruit, and compares her heart with a beautiful shell in a peaceful sea, and the purpose is only to describe the feelings that are emerging in the heart of the poetess. In this way, she very poetically describes the joy, the fullness, and peacefulness of her heart. So these are examples of similes. And when it comes to simile, An important term which we learn sometimes, which is very much linked with simile, is epic simile or Homeric simile. Epic simile or Homeric simile is also called the long-tailed simile, because in this kind of simile, the comparison is not confined to some one quality, but the comparison is extended to number of qualities which are compared, and the comparison is elaborated and spread over a number of lines. Milton, in his epic Paradise Lost, and Alexander Pope, in his mock epic Rape of the Lock, have made abundant use of such Homeric similes or epic similes that suits their purpose. So this is all about the discussion of simile, the use of simile in day-to-day life, in day-to-day writings, and the use of simile in literature. Thank you.